Today's gospel comes to us from Mark 1, the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Glory to you, O Lord. Everywhere Jesus goes, many people expect him to set them free from oppression. Everywhere he goes, he heals people. He sets them free. Disease, devils, and death are running for their lives. The forces that diminish human life are rendered powerless by Jesus. Verse 29, as soon as Jesus and the disciples left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening, at sunset, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons, and the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons. And he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still dark, he got up and went to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone's searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns, so that I may proclaim the message there also. For that is what I came out to do." Then he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. I absolutely love the Bible. I know that's not something unexpected to hear from a church guy, but let me explain why. The Bible has these wonderful surface level truths, easy revelations that you can snack on. And then it has what I call hidden depths. The more that you plumb the depths, the more rises from the deep. But you have to dig for the riches. You have to spend time in its pages. Because every once in a while, you get a nugget of truth that changes how you see the world around you, how you see yourself. I have to say that the work is worth it. This morning, I'm going to let you in on an incredible secret. People with agendas wrote the Bible. People with agendas wrote the Bible. It is true. The Bible is a tailored, purpose-driven narrative about a particular slice of history and culture. The authors wrote with intent and purpose about the activity of God in the world that they lived. Now, to be clear, just because humans with intent wrote these inspired narratives does not make them any less true. But it's our job as readers to try to figure out what the authors were up to. If we don't ask why they wrote what they wrote, then we might miss something amazing. Last week, we learned about a possessed man being healed in the synagogue. And at the surface level, we see a man's life restored. Jesus' power being flexed. At a deeper level, we see the author of Mark making it abundantly clear to his readers that Jesus was unlike any other rabbi in Israel. His authority, his power over the heavenly realms was backed up by action. So after that, what rabbi would you choose to follow? Mark was also most likely writing to Jewish Christians in Rome, who at the time were in a deeply entrenched war with Rome. Part of being a Roman citizen was acknowledging that the Caesar, the emperor, was God and held ultimate authority over your life. You were asked to bow and submit to Rome. This got the Jews in trouble because they had only one God. The Romans were arresting them, killing them, and the Jewish temple had just been destroyed, possibly in the same year that the author was writing this gospel. Now, if you were a Jewish Christian in Rome reading this account of Jesus, a Jewish rabbi who silences and casts out demons by his very word, whose authority seems more valid, Rome's or the Messiah? These believers needed to know and be assured that Jesus was powerful, that he had control over the unseen things of the world. This week, Mark tells the next story in sequence in the timeline. Jesus leaves the temple and enters the house of Simon and Andrew. Now, Simon's mom has a fever, and Jesus heals her immediately. And at once, she begins to serve them. Now, the first thing that is significant about the healing was that it was done outside the temple. Jesus' power and authority aren't just bound to the temple. He is God in the temple and outside. This is a powerful concept, especially when you remember that it is likely that the destruction of the temple had just taken place. Jesus' power didn't need a specific place. How many of us categorize and compartmentalize God's activity in our lives, where and when it happens? Many Jews did this as well. There were holy things and unholy things. God lived in the temple, a holy place. That's where God stuff happened. Now, Jesus shows us that God isn't bound to the temple anymore. God is active outside of the church building. Now, also, if you were a Jewish Christian in Rome whose government was actively persecuting you, and you read that not only did the Messiah heal in the temple, but healed in someone's house, your world just blew up. Yahweh's activity and power and authority wasn't limited to dedicated holy places. God was on the loose. God was active. And if God was alive where they were, active where they were, with the struggles that they faced, then God's power was available to them as well. What if God was with them right now? These would be the questions that Mark's readers would have been asking themselves. What if we asked ourselves the same questions? What if God is with you right now? How would that change how you see yourself? How would that change how you approach life? What if God was present and supportive when you faced difficult struggles in your life? What if God was with you all the time, not just when you went to church? Second is the timing, the Sabbath. First century Jews took the Sabbath incredibly seriously. It's commanded. Right up there with don't murder, don't have other gods before me, is this day of rest. Why is this day so important? Well, you have to remember that for most of their existence, Israelite Jews were slaves, bound to more powerful people, under oppressive regimes. They were victims. They worked incredibly hard for other people. In the middle of the desert, God gives them a command. Remember the Sabbath. Remember that you aren't slaves anymore. You're free. And you need to take a day to rest from work because free people aren't bound to another's will. Free people get a day off. The Sabbath original command wasn't to add another rule or bind God's people. It was to free them. But over time, God's people forgot the intent of the Sabbath and began to restrict and compartmentalize where and when God's activity could take place. So Jesus needed to remind them that God is active everywhere, not just in temples, not just on Sabbaths. God is active all the time, not just on particular days of the week. I don't know what binds you, what is holding you down this week, but I want you to know that God has power over it. I think sometimes we can unintentionally compartmentalize where and when God might be active in our lives. This morning, I want you to know that God is active and wants to support you in every place in your life, in your job, in your relationships, your family life, your health, your thinking, your self-image, your heart, everywhere. I love that Simon's mother-in-law's first reaction to being healed is to get up and serve, to go help. Reminds me of my mom. She loves to host, to have people in her house, to make them comfortable and welcomed. It gives her joy to make others feel taken care of. And we deeply miss being in her home with the frequency that we are used to. COVID stinks. It really does. But I also have to wonder if Simon's mother-in-law served out of thankfulness. She was feeling terrible, and all of a sudden she is fine. Fever was no light thing in the first century. It made you ritually unclean, maybe even cursed. And no one was ever sure if that fever might be a killer. It was scary to have a fever. The rabbis spoke of fevers as a game of bones. But Jesus cuts through all the fear, all the terror, reaches out, grabs her hand, and pulls her up. Instantly, she is free from the fever. She is healed. She's clean, safe, at peace. And all she's left with in her heart is a heart full of thankfulness. I need you to listen this morning. The wonder of the gospel for you is that we've been set free from sin's oppression, sin's fear, sin's power over us. We're not bound anymore to our past. We're not afraid of our future. And in our present, God is undoubtedly with us. So that all you are left with is to love and take care of other people out of a pure and thankful heart. What a blessed and wonderful way to do life. Amen.